And the great thing that I think, another addition that our new student information system will bring is that it brings an ability to clearly communicate to kids and to parents in a uniform and systematic way. Our vision is that even parents can get on at some point, so don't freak out, not beginning of next year. Parents won't be able to get on and see how your teacher's reporting by standard. But when it's right, and as we professionally, as a team, make this decision that this is the right thing to do, flip a magical switch where a parent can log in and see their kid's class and see an overall grade, but also see by standard how they're performing over time in that class. Then empowers the parent to take some ownership to say, oh, Johnny doesn't know how to add and subtract, negative numbers or whatever, multiply negative numbers. I could do something about that. So, again, how this fits under proficiency is proficiency. The fundamental level is helping kids take ownership of their learning. And in order to do that, we know that we need to have parents be on board and knowledgeable. So we're raising the level of knowledge in our kids and parents about what the learning is and what's supposed to be happening. And then lastly, we have an evaluation system that speaks directly towards this. So that's the coaching that's going on in your buildings currently as you meet with teachers and talk to them, you do mini observations. I want to empower you and encourage you as you talk to them to not be afraid to say, well, this is really what proficiency means. This is what it's about. It means having clear and measurable objectives. So we asked the essential question. Well, I saw that you had the standards posted and that you're teaching towards those. Are you also show me how you're assessing towards these standards, and how are you going to report feedback towards this learning, these clear and measurable objectives. So I think that's another support in the system that we're currently doing that helps us to move towards a proficiency-based system. So there is a lot of work going on currently, and you guys are, obviously there's a lot of great work going on around our observations and the whole evaluation system.
So is there any, have we looked at other school districts that have made this transition? And the reason I ask the question is I think of Incrata, a senior graduating from high school, wanting to go to college, has a transcript to get into the university of his or her choice. It would seem to me there's the possibility that a B based on standards from the Redmond School District could be different from an A in the Bend School District. So if I want my child to have the best opportunity to go to the university of his or her choice, are we going to have a system, or is it, I guess, is it going to fit in with other systems, the university system, neighboring school districts, so that our kids get a fair shake and that they're truly analyzing what standards-based and proficiency education is?
The reality there is at the secondary level, we will always transcript an overall grade. So for a university that doesn't want to look at any other information that we provide on their transcript, they will have an A in math, a B in math, a C in math, and calculated to a GPA.
Right, but go back to that screen where I guess my question, Shay, is that right there. I'm wondering if you go to this system, is there any grade inflation or depression with the overall grade? Whatever that one grade is on the transcript, if we're going to standards, is it going to have an impact on the one grade that we put on the transcript?
And I'd say most certainly. And it's Drew's question in a different way around when Dave's about to talk about all this is great, but it's, again, if it's not, in my biased view, to a level pushing towards rigor and mastery, it's just moving letters around. And here's evidence of our system. We have 18 kids who have made it through our high school system, made it through our K-12 system, who have passed every credit right now. They're seniors. And they've taken the Oaks reading test a lot of times, and they still haven't passed that thing. There's, again, some fundamental disconnect between being able to perform on that, because I would say this, the Oaks reading test is not the most rigorous test that we want students to be able to perform at. And somehow they're getting through our system, even demonstrating to teachers that they know something, but aren't able to perform that. So we are for sure bumping the level up across the system. And ultimately where I think that prepares kids, Dave, is on those nationally normed assessments, SATs, et cetera, that colleges are going to look for. We expect over time we're going to get better outcomes for that. But this most certainly is a bump up. And the reality when this actually starts being implemented, and I'm jumping ahead when we get to this next part, the first pushback is going to be, well, this used to be good enough, frankly. And the frank answer is it's no longer. And here's why. And we can address those things. And so I'm jumping a little ahead, but we are not going to be, and when you said other districts, I guess where I jumped to that is the only districts who have truly taken even close to a step we're trying to do. They've gone about it in slightly different ways, and in a sense have blown up grade levels, right, and have just kind of progressed through time. They don't even transcript necessary letter grades. We're not doing that. Our heart of this first part is to give feedback, and I think when Dave starts talking next, it's to get the level of performance from our kids to a different level. And so some of you might have gone on, and you can see something called Adams County 50, which is in Colorado. They're probably one of the most leading edge districts if you want to look at what someone else is doing. But they truly don't transcript grades out the way we're talking about here.
May I jump in?
Yeah.
I know I'm the technology person in the room, but I've actually been working with a lot of focus groups and the state efforts around proficiencies for about 4.5 years now. And when you talk to the kind of P20 continuum people, which this might become even more important if the governor's changes get adopted here, but if you talk to the folks at U of O and OSU, they can actually tell us who from around the state sends them kids with 4.0s who can't write an introductory English paper, an introductory research paper in college. They can tell you already which districts in the state, you know, those traditional letter grades don't hold value for. So
and when you talk to them, they actually don't publicly say this, but they take into account their own grade inflation over time when they evaluate a Redmond school district 4.0 or a 3.7. It's not tied to outcomes. And the thing we're going to have to understand with this move is we're going to get pushback. And the pushback we're going to get most quickly is from parents and kids who this used to be what you're asking now something more. And I think the thing internally to ask yourselves is, are the kids producing what you want of them? And my bias is not about the effort of the adults, but there's something wrong when you sit in a staff room and people talk for 6-7 years that our kids can't write. Well, I'm not saying you're doing something wrong, but the system's doing something wrong. Right? And people are just hitting their heads against walls. And the most frustrating thing in anybody's job, I think, is when you put your heart into something and you don't see changed outcomes for that. We have to look at doing something different. And I think most of us who spend time with teachers can clearly rattle off a series of skills that our kids aren't to the level we want them, and it's frustrating. And this, I hope, will elevate that, but it will for sure be a point for an increased bar and an expectation that then those grades that you used to have that reflected an A might not be an A. But this is why.
Excellent.
The next part with Dave, when he's talking about this next level of rigor, most of you are already jumping to that, and I think this will help clarify some of that.
Absolutely. I think what we're getting to is, and I think Chris and I were chatting the other day about this. I think you made a valid point in that you could have all these standards aligned and have them seamless, that these skills translate here to this level, but if the level of rigor isn't there, and our trajectory is not right, that we don't actually have kids hitting that end result that we want. So just having objectives that are clear and measurable is one thing. But if they're not the right trajectory, if they're not rigorous enough, if the outcomes aren't rigorous enough, if our expectations aren't high enough, then we're not doing our kids any favors. I'll never forget, confessing here, I've watched a couple of Oprahs in my lifetime. When I was teaching English at the high school, I remember coming home, my wife was watching Oprah, and she's like, hey, honey, you gotta watch this. I'm like, no, I can't watch Oprah, it's against everything I believe in this world. No, but so I came in and watched a little bit of a video clip from Oprah, and she was interviewing